Welcome in again, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the R&D Sports Report. I'm Dishmond, joined by Rylee, as always, and we've got a lot to get into today. And first off, I think the first thing we're gonna kind of get into here, Rylee, is the NBA trade deadline.
This is gonna be exciting to talk about. I'm really interested in talking about it.
And something that we were wrong about.
Maybe just a tad bit.
Yeah, we on the last episode we said we thought it would be very boring.
Quiet, yeah.
It was not quiet, to say the least.
No, not at all. It was definitely a surprise.
I did. Obviously, the big story from the trade deadline is the Cleveland Cavaliers and what they did. And I thought they would make some moves. I didn't think they'd make that many moves.
No,
I thought
not
they'd,
at all.
a player or two here or there, but woo, was it a busy trade deadline?
I think there was a lot of phone calls made that day. Some happy, some not. So I'm ready to see what you think about this.
Well, and it's something that I know I've seen. I can't even remember who it was recently that said they learned about a trade through. Oh, it was Blake Griffin. There we go. And he learned about the trade through Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
And so it's like, okay, all these guys getting dealt by the Cavs. Do they learn by Twitter?
I mean, I feel like depending on how loyal you are to your players, they could have called you. You could have just found out through Twitter. You never know. So,
but I guess there is a joke there to say that maybe the Cavs players didn't know because they're so old, but maybe they were waiting on the newspaper to come through. But so with the Cavs, you trade away Isaiah Thomas,
mm-hmm.
and Channing Frye.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the Lakers,
mm-hmm.
and in return. Now we're not going to break down every trade, obviously, but in return from just the Lakers alone, they get Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson. Ironically enough, Larry Nance Jr., his dad, played in Cleveland.
Right.
Larry Nance Jr. was born in Akron, and is from Akron, where 01 LeBron James is also from.
Right.
And so the Cavs also send their first-round pick to the Lakers. So now they are locked in until until draft day to be able to trade the Brooklyn Nets pick that they got in the Kyrie Irving trade where, they acquired Isaiah Thomas and then a few months later they get rid of him. Needless to say, that didn't work out very well.
No, I thought that was kind of jacked up, to be honest.
But we'll get into that a little bit more. But they also trade away Derrick Rose gets traded away. D-Wade gets traded back home to Miami.
Yep.
Now that's a little bit of a different situation there because it's been said and reported, and I've heard it over and over, that they at least gave him a choice to either take a reduced role with the Cavaliers or to be able to be sent back home and shipped back home to Miami, and he chose to go back to Miami where he loves it.
Right.
I don't know if you happen to see the video post that he and his wife did.
Was it on Instagram?
I think it might have been on Instagram. It was that. I might have seen it on Twitter, but did you happen to see it?
I don't think so. I was looking at some of his posts, but I don't think so.
Anyways, in that they talk about they understand the business. They are happy to go back home. Right,
yeah.
Miami is where they knew for years. It's where he got drafted out of Marquette. It's where he made a name for himself, was in Miami.
Exactly.
And the people in Wade County conveniently, right? in there in Florida, they love Dwayne Wade.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
He wins a title with Shaq on the Heat.
Yeah, and
then hit
LeBron,
two
right?
more with LeBron.
Yeah.
And Chris Bosh there. But, he's brought so much to that franchise, and now he's able to go back home, right? And in that video, he and his wife made a joke about, being able to go back to somewhere where it's warm.
Exactly.
Cleveland, not the warmest place this time of year.
No, definitely
Miami, a lot better, temperature-wise and all that.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
So, they at least give him the option there.
I feel like he's happy too, though.
Well, and I think he is happy. I think he did love playing with LeBron, and him and LeBron are always going to be boys.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But you can see that, D-Wade still got, that old Dwayne Wade in him, but at the same time, he's lost a step or two.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
And when we think about that, Dwayne Wade and LeBron busting in to the NBA in the same draft, they've been in as many years, but LeBron's like 3 years younger than Dwayne Wade is.
Yeah, that's the problem.
LeBron straight out of high school is drafted, and Dwayne Wade comes out of Marquette.
Yeah.
So he's 3, maybe even 4 years older than LeBron James is.
Right.
So, he's got a little bit more wear and tear on his body, so it's obvious to see that he would lose a step or two.
Exactly.
But if you saw the video and the reaction, right, from the crowd, that first game back, man, were they in love there in Miami to have Dwayne Wade back.
Oh, yeah. I know this is probably not one of our topics today, but the jerseys were pretty cool to look at.
Oh, those Miami Vice jerseys are awesome.
Oh, they're dope.
Did you happen to see Hassan Whiteside's reaction?
No, I did not.
So he's got these reporters around him.
Right.
And they say, so what do you think about Dwayne Wade coming back? And he kind of looks at them like they're crazy. And he's like, what? Are you joking with me?
That's
Are you for real? And he's like, no, for real. He's like, no way. For real? And like keep going back and forth. And they're like, yeah, we're for real. Dwayne Wade's coming back. He's like, oh, man, I love D-Wade. Like, it's so great. And I think it's, embodies what a lot of the players that, experienced Dwayne Wade even for maybe a season or two down in Miami after LeBron had left, that, Dwayne Wade almost is the Miami Heat, right?
Pretty much.
He's so synonymous with that team.
Exactly.
That, it kind of made sense for him to go back home.
Pretty much. I mean, it's like LeBron going back to Cleveland.
Well, and it's like some of these players, whether it's the NFL or whatever, that'll sign these 1 day or 10-hour contracts just so they can retire a member of the team that they spent so much of their time with, right?
Right.
And here Dwayne Wade, maybe in his last season, maybe in his last, maybe he's got one more after this.
Maybe.
But, 15 years in the NBA, 15 seasons, that's a lot of mileage.
I give him props, man. I really do. I love D-Wade, and I've always, I mean, I never got to watch him when I was little, but I've always liked him a lot.
But, him being able to go back to Miami, I feel like it was just right. And if that is the way that the Cavs actually did it, said, hey, look, we were bringing in these players, and you can either take a diminished role or we can be able to ship you back to Miami. And he goes, nah, ship me back to Miami. I feel like that's right by the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, that's
loyalty
right there.
Well, and a player of his stature, a player, I'm pretty sure they didn't go to Isaiah Thomas and go, hey, how you feel about the Lakers?
Yeah, they definitely didn't have enough respect for him.
Well, but I don't think he had respect for them. All the comments he made,
true.
I don't think he showed the same respect. And, there's comments out there, not to throw these guys under the bus, but that there were chemistry issues, and it was mainly two guys, Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas, both of which are now gone.
Right.
And shipped out. So the Cavs on the trade deadline, they got a whole lot younger.
Yeah, they did.
They made some moves in the offseason this past summer that you thought, I just don't know how that's going to work, right? These guys are a little bit older.
Yeah,
You know, even a guy like Dwayne Wade, he's older.
Yeah.
He's not, he's not the Miami Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, or the Dwayne Wade with Shaq.
No, definitely not.
He's older. Mm-hmm. He's got more miles on his tires, so to speak. But they get a lot younger. They go from, at one point having in the NBA having the oldest age average of a team to now you get Hood, Clarkson, and Nance, right, who are, I think, all 25 and under.
Right.
And then George Hill is going to be the oldest of them at 31.
Yeah, I did see that.
So, in this, they got a lot younger.
Yeah, they did.
But they also got a lot more defensive-oriented.
I can agree with that.
And I think with some of these players, they got a lot more creative with the basketball.
Yeah.
Right? A guy like Isaiah Thomas is kind of a volume scorer, and, he needs the ball, he needs to create, but at the same time, he's a defensive liability.
Right. As much as I love IT, I think he's not very defensive oriented, and I don't think he has the skill for defense.
Well, and some of that plays into his height is kind of an issue somewhat on the defensive side of things. But I heard it said, I think it was somewhere on the radio, it might have been even on TV, that he has one of the worst defensive statistics, the defensive averages, however they put that, in NBA history.
Wow.
So, if you put that in perspective, basically saying he's one of the worst defenders in the history of the league. Points for-wise and however else they actually keep track of that. Defensive efficiency, I think, was the stat they were actually talking about.
Yeah.
But, you get a lot younger.
Yeah.
And it just, at first everybody's going, whoa, wait, hang on. Look what the Lakers just did here.
Yeah.
Right? They just got rid of Clarkson, and they just got rid of Larry Nance Jr., who's still on a rookie contract. But Clarkson makes a nice bit of change, and, the Cavs will have to pay for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got a contract in Isaiah Thomas and Channing Frye, who both expire at the end of this year, and that money will come off the books.
Right, I was going to say, you might as well get your worth out of them.
Well, and you get this season, and you basically made that trade to get the usage out of them for this season, and then say, well, thanks for your help this year.
Exactly.
And they cleared space, whether it's this year, 2018, or next year's free agency, 2019, to be able to go after two max players.
Right.
Right? Whatever range that those players are in, they can offer them the most amount of money that they can per NBA rule. So, like, a guy like LeBron, he's been in the league longer. He can be able to get paid more money than a guy like Paul George, who is in a lower window. He's in, like, the 7 to 9 range.
Yeah.
Of NBA experience, and LeBron's in the 10 plus. So LeBron is able to get more money.
Right.
As a max player. But, then the talk starts going, oh, what'd the Cavaliers just do? They just gave and created this way for LeBron to go to the Lakers.
Right. Well,
and for Paul George to join him. You just created two max spots. So you basically just created a way and a path for LeBron James to leave you.
Yeah, I saw a lot of comments on Twitter when it started bursting out and all that, and a lot of people were hating on the Cavs just because they traded one IT and two D Wade. That was one of the the two biggest trades there, but a lot of people were hating on the Cavs, and they thought that everything was just going to be destroyed for Cleveland, and like you just said, everything was going to get set up for the Lakers.
Well, and you necessarily didn't. In the Cavs, you didn't get an all-star maybe back, or you didn't get a superstar back.
Right.
But you still have LeBron James. You have Kevin Love, who's going to be back at some point, right?
Right.
And when you add him in, that's going to bring another dynamic to the team. But, you get young. That's the key. So even if LeBron James leaves you still got a really good core with a George Hill, Clarkson,
Rodney
Hood, and Larry Nance Jr., right? Those are, with the exception of really George Hill, those other three are really good young players.
Right.
Right? It's not like you just went out and got scrubs to play alongside LeBron James just to get rid of Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder, Channing Frye, Dwayne Wade, Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
You didn't just get rid of them.
No.
Now, I did see a video from, I think it was Channing Frye, and he was kind of like, man, this sucks, but, it's the business, and somewhat threw a little shade, but...
I don't blame him. You get traded, and I don't know the inside of it, but, I mean, if they didn't call you or message you, tell you, I feel like that's not...
Well, the thing...
Not right.
Well, I mean, they tell everybody, but the problem is that so many GMs are tied in to a lot of these reporters out there.
True.
Social media, Twitter especially, is able to punch out information really quick, and you can kind of leak it to these reporters and go, hey, my sources are telling me, that this is going to happen.
It's so ridiculous. Like, I feel like a loyalty. I mean, there's still loyalty to some people, but I feel like they're favoriting. Does that make sense?
Well, I think in a case like Isaiah, his comments, really since he had even been in Cleveland, and since he'd started playing, right, he starts calling out the coaching staff and some other stuff. So you could see he wasn't fully bought in to being there in Cleveland.
No, I mean, he didn't even want to go. He got traded immediately.
Well, but at the same time, like, that's part of your job, that
kind of adapt.
Well, and that's part of the life when you're an NBA player,
right.
Is that at any point during the active season you can be traded.
Yeah.
If the Pelicans go, man, this really isn't working out. We don't think we're going to get DeMarcus Cousins back, and it comes draft night, and they go, hey, Boston, you want Anthony? Come get him.
Ooh.
Right? They could do that and say, hey, go on and come get him. Give us what you got. They could say, okay, let's restart. And they could trade a guy like Anthony Davis if they wanted to.
True, but they'd get a lot out of him. But
well, yeah, you get a lot out of a player like that, but Boston also has the assets to offer.
Right.
And that he gets linked there all the time because it's, been said that they won him and they're looking towards him.
Exactly.
But you have some other trades that go down, but obviously the Cavs dominate because they have a guy like LeBron James on their team. They dominate the headlines for that reason, and one of the reasons that we talk about, we're talking about this. We're not necessarily talking about some of these other deals that go out. Blake Griffin got traded. We talked about that because that was a big deal.
Yeah, it really
and I thought that was really about the biggest thing that came out of the trade deadline, with the exception of DeAndre Jordan didn't get traded.
Right, and that's when we said it was going to get quiet.
Well, and I thought, if any noise is happening, it's DeAndre Jordan getting traded.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think the Cavs were going to take a stick of dynamite to the roster and blow it up and kind of start over, trade 6 players away and bring back 4.
Right.
For Dwayne Wade, you didn't even get a player. You got a heavily protected second-round pick that I think translates to like 2024, but then you ended up giving that away as well. So it's like you didn't, you basically gifted Dwayne Wade the ability to go back to Miami, and that's cool. That is something he spent so much time there. The years in Chicago are kind of forgettable for him.
Right.
But those years in Miami, those are something special.
Well, I mean, that's memories right there.
But, you have the Cavs doing this, but then you can also think, hey, they still got to play games before.
Oh, yeah.
before getting into, before you get into the All-Star break, right? There's still a few games before we even get into the All-Star break this weekend.
Right.
Which we'll probably talk a little bit about the All-Star game and lead up. Probably a little bit next episode, but
probably.
With the trade deadline and these deals that get done, right? You've got to get players sent out. They have to get to their new spots. But then these team doctors, you have to pass a physical for the trade to pretty much end up being completed.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you gotta, everybody's got to make sure everything's, above board and everything checks out.
Right, so you're not getting robbed.
Well, yeah, and so, let's take Isaiah because of his recent injury. IT gets traded from the Cavaliers to the Lakers, and the Lakers doctors go and evaluate him and say, this doesn't seem right.
Right.
They could send out a warning or, something else and say, hey, you might want to rescind this trade. And there's a veto in there kind of like in the trades that they say, hey, this physical doesn't pass. This trade doesn't work. We're not doing this.
Yeah, I never knew that until now.
But so these players get in, and it was mentioned on Sunday's game, the Celtics and the Cavaliers game, which, is our first chance to be able to look at the new look Cavaliers after the trade deadline. And, in that game, you have players that only had 1 day of practice.
Yeah.
So, imagine that these players are only able to kind of practice together for 1 day, and even some of them didn't even get a full day because of that physical part that I was talking about. I think there was kind of a little bit of a holdup. I believe it was with Channing Frye and the Lakers. And so Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. weren't cleared to be released to practice with the Cavs until everything checked out with Channing Frye's physical, because in case the Lakers said, no, we're not doing this.
Right.
So, they're getting like a half day to practice. The other two have a full day to practice. And, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine trying to throw a team together that fast, especially in the NBA, and you're facing a team like Boston with a Kyrie Irving. Now, granted, they are missing a huge piece in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see that with Gordon Hayward not being there. You can see that that's missing a huge piece for them.
Yeah, and I feel like that's I like Boston, but I'm not a fan of Boston, So I can see where Gordon being out, can hurt them and lose games for them. But
well, I mean, you can see it. You can see it, especially in the game Sunday.
Oh,
yeah. That that just hurt them.
Yeah,
because they go at times where they can't score.
No, not at all.
And to not have a guy like Gordon Hayward who can score on demand.
Exactly.
Kyrie can't do it all.
No.
And that's one of Boston's biggest issues, I think, is that the fact that they go scoreless for these long droughts.
Right.
And they have this issue. If you can't score, it's kind of hard to win. Even if you play the best defense out there, you still got to be able to score at some point.
Agreed.
And to not have a guy like Gordon Hayward hurts.
Agreed.
Now, watching the Cavs, previous to this game, now granted this is one game sample with these new players, so let's calm down a little bit.
Right.
But, because you have Blake Griffin going to the Pistons, and they win 5 in a row.
Yeah.
But then they've lost a couple in a row,
Yeah, it's like an up and down kind of.
Well,
thing.
and it takes time for those new pieces to get acquainted with one another,
and get the chemistry going.
Right, but at the same time, with the Cavs after this trade deadline deals, I should say, that were made, you can see that there is hope.
Yeah.
That prior to this, you and I had talked, I believe, on here and just even in private, that the Cavs may be done. This may be the year LeBron James finally misses after making 7 in a row, going back through Miami.
Yeah.
NBA Finals, and this may be the year he finally misses the NBA Finals. The Celtics may be able to actually take this. Now, I think that chance would be still higher for the Celtics.
Yeah.
If they had a Gordon Hayward.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
But I also think if they actually had Gordon Hayward, the Cavs might have made moves like this earlier.
Yeah.
And before, last minute. But I think the Cavs made these moves to try and say, hey, LeBron, we are investing in you. You get some of these younger players that actually still have a few, they got a few seasons under their belt.
Yeah.
And I believe it was George Hill, I think, that said, LeBron's our Batman. We just have to be his Robins, pretty much.
That's a funny quote, right there.
Well, it is a great quote. That's not exactly what he said, but that's just that's somewhat of what he said. LeBron James is Batman, and he is for the Cavs. We just have to be Robins. We all have to be the Robins.
Yeah.
And that's a great quote, but he just watching that game Sunday, it kind of reminded me, until I see LeBron James lose in the Eastern Conference Finals and not go to the NBA Finals, how can I bet against him?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Which also is one of the reasons I think he doesn't go out west. I don't think he goes to LA.
No, I don't either.
I don't think if he goes out west, a Spurs wouldn't surprise me, but I still don't think he goes there.
No,
I think he stays put in Cleveland. Your ticket is made to the NBA Finals year in, year out in the East. Now, if you go to the West, and say you go to the Lakers, okay? You got to try to get through Golden State at some point.
Yeah.
And for right now, the Houston Rockets.
Ouch.
There is no doubt that the West in the NBA is the harder conference of the two. It's easy to see.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what the Cavs just did on the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, everybody goes, hey, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But everybody now goes, yeah, they are once again probably the favorites to get back.
Yeah, I feel like they're too quick to judgment.
I think we are too quick to judgment off a small sample, but at the same time, I think you see the potential that's there.
Yeah, I do.
And you go, holy crap. Granted, I see that potential that's there with the Cavs, and I think, the Warriors are still winning this.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that once I looked up, the Boston and Cavs game. I just thought to myself, there's no way that anybody could beat the Warriors.
Well, and that's what's sad is you're just like, well, the Warriors are going to win it again.
Duh.
But at the same time, I think you're young enough with the Cavs and athletic enough and be able to play enough defense now that they would contend 10 times better now,
right,
than they would have prior to the trade deadline.
Well, and I can agree with that. I feel like the younger people can feed off, or LeBron and the older guys, J.R. Smith, those guys can feed off the younger guys' energy.
Well, and you've still got guys there like a J.R. Smith, like a Kyle Korver, who, after the trades were made, right, all those players aren't available right away. I think there was still a game in between the Boston-Cleveland game and the trade deadline. I think there was one game in between. And Kyle Korver goes for 30 points. He hasn't done that in like almost a decade or even over a decade.
No. Kyle
Korver still is lethal from three-point range.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
They have players. J.R. Smith, when he's hitting, when he's into the game, can defend and can shoot the three.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what you need when you play alongside LeBron, right?
Agreed, yeah.
LeBron can drive it. He's got the strength to get in there. If you move well enough without the ball, and you can hit that three, he can kick it to you, and you can pop it, which then helps him be able to drive in and not have as much defensive pressure if he can pop it out to you and you can hit the three.
Right.
That's one of the biggest issues that the Cavs were having.
Yeah, and finally they have the players and the I guess youth to do that.
But at the same time, you watched that game Sunday. I watched that game Sunday, and what you saw was a completely different Cavaliers team, both figuratively and literally. They played a different style of basketball almost, with even having one practice. And that's what I think gets me not necessarily hyped the most, but the most excited about the idea of this new look Cavs team.
Right.
Is the fact that they had one practice and they look like that.
Yeah.
You know, granted, Boston didn't play its best game, but it's also a 7-game series.
Well, and like,
you know, Boston can have a game like that and, still make it up. But at the same time, I just don't know. And I think it's now, once again, the Cavaliers, in the East. And I never thought they were completely dead in the East.
Yeah. Because
LeBron goes into, like, some other mode in the playoffs.
It's ridiculous. It's like he turns on the clutch mode or something, like flips it on.
Yeah, it's like he's got to switch. It's like, all right, now we go to the playoffs. But, even last year and the year before, having Kyrie there with him, Kyrie played clutch in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
When they win the title, when they win the championship, Kyrie hits a big shot.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I watched that.
But LeBron still played, great basketball, and he plays
always
great basketball in the playoffs. But at the same time, right, there were teams there, the Raptors, the Celtics were thought to then be the favorites in the East, and it just didn't look like it was the Cavs' year.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we do have more of the talking heads and even us believing that it's now the Cavs going to come out of the East. I still think the Raptors have a good shot, but let's talk a little bit about that game that's got everybody so hyped. The game between Cleveland and Boston. And so, do you remember exactly what the starting lineups were for Cleveland? Because I know they didn't start all the new guys, but and they had some people come off the bench that had been kind of sitting there forever.
Right.
But do you remember exactly what the starting lineups are? Do you have it available there to you?
Yeah, I got it. For the Cavs, it was George Hill, J.R. Smith, Osman, LeBron James, and Tristan Thompson.
Which I think LeBron at the 4 is great.
I can agree with that.
Him playing at the 4 brings a different dynamic because now you got to have a power forward who maybe isn't used to guarding somebody on the wing, right? LeBron is now pulling him out on the wing.
Yeah. And,
so you said George Hill,
J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith, he was already there.
Mm-hmm.
Osman.
Yeah, Osman, yeah.
Which he has, and I saw this, and you can go, who is this guy, right?
Yeah.
Who is this guy that all of a sudden is now on the Cavs? But apparently he's been there. He got traded from, I think it was Minnesota. And he got traded, and he's been in Europe for years, and he's still really young. Yeah. Right, he I think last year was his last year playing in Turkey, I believe it was. And you go from there, to the NBA, and it's going to take some time adjusting. A lot of European players do take time to adjust. This is a different game.
No doubt.
But, he looked pretty good except for, did you see that missed dunk?
No.
Oh, my goodness. You didn't see that missed dunk?
No, I'm guessing I was away. I was eating, I guess. I don't know.
So, he anticipates the pass correctly.
Right.
Steals it. Breakaway. Nobody around him. Misses a two-handed dunk.
Wow.
Did
it bounce off the back of the rim or what?
Yeah, I'll show it to you here. But it was something awful. And I was like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how are you going to miss a dunk like that?
Well, especially when you're a small forward and you're big like that. Like, how do you... I mean, that's like LeBron. I mean, he's not as good as LeBron, but when LeBron misses a dunk, you get surprised.
Well, yeah, exactly. When he misses, those big dunks, it
You're like, wait,
it
what?
is surprising.
You okay?
But
you sleepy?
So they don't even start everybody. They start one player that they got in the trade, George Hill.
Yeah.
So you have Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, and Larry Nance Jr. coming off the bench.
Yeah,
You have obviously LeBron. It is not going to come off the bench.
Well, duh.
But it's like, my goodness.
Well, I feel like Tyronn Lue was probably just testing out the.
Well, and we'll probably see some of these different things, and that's probably why you don't start a guy, a Jordan Clarkson or whatever. But at the same time, that's why Dwayne Wade wasn't starting for them. He was coming off the bench to provide the energy off the bench to provide the scoring.
Right.
But I was just like, they look, and they were obviously a completely different team. But even LeBron looked like a different player than we had been seeing.
Yeah. It's like I said earlier, I just feel like he kind of fed off their energy, and it made them a faster, quicker team.
But, and I think it's the energy that they bring to the game.
Agreed.
And you saw it on the bench. You saw it at one point when, Clarkson, I think it was, is on a fast break, nails a three, and LeBron is going insane on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's going insane. Like, that's what we haven't seen from him all year.
Right. I feel like he's kind of
It's almost like
dead inside.
Well, it is. It's like, these kids helped him out. They gave him the energy to kind of get back into the game.
Right.
And that's probably got a lot to do with having the older players. And the Cavs previously, and they had been on TV forever. LeBron makes the comment that maybe they shouldn't be playing on national TV, and he was right. They looked awful.
It was so trash. It was
to get blown out by the Rockets at one point, and to lose to the Magic.
Yeah.
Who I think are at the bottom of the league.
That
right?
Just
They trade even their point guard and Alfred Payton to the Suns at the end of the trade deadline.
Wow. I look back on it, and it's like, wow, they were trash.
It's like night and day after this trade deadline.
Yeah,
and I try to tamp down my expectations and what I thought of the game and what I think they're gonna continue to do. But at the same time, I can't help but get excited with this.
Well, I mean, come on, who doesn't like to see LeBron James starting to rise up, slowly but surely.
Well, and not only that, but just think, Cavs, Warriors, once again in the NBA Finals, right? And now having a younger team for the Cavs, they're probably going to try to go up and down more with the Warriors. Think of how exciting that game's going to be if they actually try to go up and down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be exciting to watch. I'm actually just talking about it. I'm getting excited, pumped up.
Granted, we have to get through the rest of the playoffs, and I think a team like Toronto has been playing really great this year and could be a real threat.
I feel like they've been quiet, no one's really paid attention.
Well, it's Toronto, right?
True.
Let me think. They're what, the only team in Canada in the NBA?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just like they're quiet. They're up there, in Canada doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And of course, LeBron dominates the media.
Of course.
But, with the Cavs, it's going to dominate. But, the Raptors have been quiet, but they've been quietly good the entire time.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of, I wouldn't say mysterious, but what's the word I'm looking for? Fishy, I guess.
Well, it's how are you this good?
And no one's really
really talking about you.
I guess just because of their Canada. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why? What's the other reason why you wouldn't talk about them?
I guess probably the not necessarily just because they're in Canada, but it's something that they don't have like that media darling superstar.
True.
Where like the Warriors have Steph, KD, Clay, Draymond when it comes to the media, right?
Oh my gosh.
But the Rockets have James Harden,
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, and the Cavs have LeBron, obviously. The Celtics got Kyrie Irving, but they've got DeMar DeRozan up there, Kyle Lowry, right? Really good players, really, really good.
Yeah,
all-star
really
quality players, but they're not like that media darling superstar type.
Yeah, like they're not really on media constantly. Like Cavs are on there always. I look on Twitter; they're always right there in front of me.
Well, there's always something. Yeah, there's always something going on. There's always a highlight play, and I think with this young team. It was funny. I think it was Jordan Clarkson or Larry Nance. I can't remember. I think it was Jordan Clarkson. They asked him about LeVar Ball, right, not having to deal with that anymore, going to Cleveland. He didn't say a word.
No.
He just kind of smiled and moved on, and we all can read into that what we will and what we wish.
No kidding.
But I think for all parties involved, Isaiah looks like he might be in a little bit of a better place scoring-wise and, like, offensive-wise. That first game in for the Lakers, he looked incredible. He kind of looks like the Isaiah Thomas of old, what the Cavs probably thought they were getting.
Yeah, and then what they really got.
But I don't think he ever fit in well in Cleveland.
No.
His attitude, obviously, you could tell, didn't really fit in to always be questioning,
right?
The Cavs organization, the coaches, the this and the that. But
did you see the quote that he put out once the game with the Lakers was over?
No, I didn't see that quote.
He said something about, like, I feel like I have powers here, like superpowers.
Oh yeah, because I saw something about a level up Isaiah or whatever, and I was like, okay.
I felt like that was a little bit tad dramatic, but whatever.
Well, it probably was
like
little
a rub
bit.
in the face.
But it just it's one of those things. For a trade deadline that we thought was going to go by quietly, all of a sudden, like, my phone starts blowing up of getting this and that reports. Woj reports. This player's getting traded here, and I was like, whoa, what? And so, like, I start flipping through channels,
Right.
I'm obviously on Twitter and all that.
Yeah, I woke up that morning, I was just...
And it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but I texted you, I was like, what in the world? What is the Cavs doing? They're going young on me.
Well, and they just, like, they reached it, and Kobe Altman, the GM of the Cavs, if this works out great for them, he needs to get this credit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
At the same time, a guy like Dan Gilbert, even, LeBron having issues with him being the owner, with this trade, he has to be able to say, hey, I will take on a little bit more of the financial burden here because they got a little more into the luxury tax, stuff that he's going to have to pay for himself.
Right, well, it's kind of like I'm your friend, don't
Well,
don't
it's one of those, look,
thing.
I'm willing to pay for success, right?
Right.
And that's pretty much what even the Warriors have done. They're way into the luxury tax and having to pay. But the owners there, they said, look, we want to win.
Yeah.
And we want to have, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson on here. And we are willing to spend a little bit extra to get a whole lot better product.
Right.
So, it obviously that's kind of what dominated this weekend when you talk sports-wise, because it was,
it was so big.
Well, and it was, and I think everybody kind of thought, oh, well, we're just going to kind of settle down into this. Blake Griffin was the big splash.
Yeah.
Now, this wasn't like the biggest day in trade deadline history.
No.
In the sense of like numbers of trades, but like for the Cavs to get rid of 6 players bring back Fort Wright. They made almost a complete overhaul of their roster in a day.
And it's not like they traded trash players either. They traded big superstars. I mean, come on.
You trade Isaiah, but also a guy, when they did that Kyrie Irving deal, I remember you and I even talked. I was like, I think the Celtics might have got the better.
Right.
But I was like, man, Isaiah comes back if he's good, playing alongside LeBron. Jay Crowder's a great role player.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, man, maybe the Cavs got even a little bit better here because they got more role player and a guy like a Jay Crowder. Isaiah can score. Maybe they can kind of make up for his deficiency on defense. But I was like, man, but you could see it never quite gelled.
No.
Especially after he came back. And, I thought, well, it'll take him some time to kind of get back to the way he was.
Yeah.
But after a month, you would think he'd be really close to there. Or kind of showing, like, you could clearly tell. You could clearly tell, right, that it just wasn't working.
No, definitely not.
But, this is something I think to keep an eye on, and obviously everybody will keep, the Cavs are 1-0 since, or 2-0 since the trade deadline. But, they shot, an insane amount of threes in that game with the Celtics. They scored, but I think the other thing to pay attention to is that they held the Celtics under 100 points.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know when the last time this season that the Cavaliers actually held someone under 100 points.
Yeah.
Because it was what, 121 to 99? Was that the final score?
Yeah, that was the score.
So, what, 22-point victory? 22-point victory.
Math again.
I know it.
Math again.
Look, we've talked math is, but a 22-point victory, for a team that's been able to practice a day.
Yeah.
And even if that's someone not even fully a day, like, is insane. But how many threes did they make?
The Cavs?
Yeah, the Cavs.
Well, they shot 30 and they made 16.
So they went for what, like 53% or something like that?
Yeah.
Which, is an insane percentage to hit on threes.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember what their overall shooting percentage was?
Like field goals?
Yeah.
The field goal was 53.6%.
So they even on that, twos and threes, go over 50%. Like, that's going to be hard to beat a team when that team is, shooting over 50%.
Yeah, that's definitely a big problem there.
And I think some of that is they kind of broke the will of the Celtics.
Yeah.
In the game. But at the same time, I think that shows you, right, a little bit what that defensive energy will get into and,
the potential that they have.
Well, and I do think it showed the potential, and I think that's what has people so hyped up. It is the potential that is there.
Exactly.
But also this weekend, besides the Cavs kind of trading over, that you have the Colts. I love them, just finally able to find somebody.
Yeah.
But it's not like they just went out and hired, whoever they could find.
No.
They hire what's thought to be a really good hire for them, and I've even seen some say that they think that it might be a better hire than the original Josh McDaniels hire for them. Had been there previously, and Frank Reich, I think is how you say his last name.
Yeah, I believe so.
He becomes the head coach for the Colts. He'd been there 2006, 2011. He'd been an offensive assistant. I think he was a QB coach at one point. And I know I saw something from Pat McAfee. Said, he loved the guy, loved the hire, going to be great for the Colts.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning made a comment of it. Austin Collie did. Tony Dungy even did. Talked about, he's a man with this integrity, which I kind of read somewhat between the lines of Tony Dungy's quote.
Yeah.
And kind of saw a little shade being thrown at Josh McDaniels.
Right.
Especially when you end it with the hashtag integrity.
Well, I mean, come on. He's kind of a jerk, really.
Well, no, I can't disagree with him. But I look at this and everything I keep reading, everything I keep seeing, it's one of those that you almost go, why didn't you go here first?
Yeah.
But I think Josh McDaniels is a big name. Frank Reich is 56 years old.
Yeah.
So he's not super old, but not a young guy like a Josh McDaniels.
Right, so he has some experience.
But, I think it was 8 years ago or something like that. Well, let's see. 2006, he started with the Colts as an intern. He was a high school coach, right? 9 years ago? So, and to me, a coach is a coach.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, at whatever level, if you're a high school head coach or whatever, if you love doing that, granted there are different varies of success. I wouldn't compare a high school coach and say, hey,
he's better than this one.
Well, yeah, he's better than a Nick Saban, because it's at a different level, right? These are different levels, but a coach is still a coach, no matter at what level.
Right, I get what you're saying.
But, everything I keep reading, everything these former Colts players say, ones that have even worked with him, the Eagles released a thing congratulating him, Eagles players saying, all this stuff about him. I feel like they, for what was kind of left, so to speak, after Josh McDaniels turned them down, I feel like they hit this out of the park. I feel like they got a great hire here. You have a guy who, just won the Super Bowl, obviously, with the Eagles as their offensive coordinator.
Right.
Which he'd been there, I think, a couple of years. And he'd been like a QB's coach and offensive coordinator in San Diego, before that.
Right. Did you see that they found a new one? Is that
they found an offensive coordinator tonight.
Yeah,
I did see that pop up on my phone as we were recording this. So they, obviously already had the defensive coordinator in place, right? Because he signed before Josh McDaniels.
Right. Well,
and backed out.
Right.
But they hired they're reported to be hiring the Chargers wide receiver coach Nick Sirianni.
Oh, what a hard name to pronounce.
Sirianni, I don't know. And that's the problem, is without being able to hear it, just reading it, you can always pronounce them wrong. And my apologies, Nick, if I just butchered that, if you are actually listening to this. But, it's one of those things that when you kind of look at it over the scope of things, you feel almost a little bit better for the Colts here.
Yeah, and excitement.
Well, and myself being a Colts fan, I feel a little bit better about it.
Right.
And now I don't know if that's just because, it's been spun to me in that way. But at the same time, I didn't see all this necessarily coming when when it was, announced and known for a while before they officially said that they were hiring Josh McDaniels. But I didn't really see all these people kind of coming out and going, oh, this is a great hire, great hire here and there. But you see that now, you see these people going, hey, this guy is great. I loved him when, the players love him and this and that. So I think for the Colts, even though you kind of had to get kind of drugged through the mud, right, so to speak, with Josh McDaniels turning you down, I think you almost turned out better with this.
Yeah, but I can agree with that.
I don't know if you happen to see this or not, but it was hilarious. Kind of when they announced this, I saw reports that said, the Colts aren't really going to say anything until they have him signed, which obvious, you get burned once, you didn't, and then did you see where a Colts fan replied on Twitter that said, I won't believe it till I see him, pretty much standing with Irsay with the newspaper from today.
Yeah.
And so the Colts, great. being great there. They fire back and they show a picture of him with Jim Irsay and that day's newspaper, and I was like, this is great on you, Colts.
Definitely.
Showed him even, and that was kind of their original tweet that I think got it all started. Is they did the looking eyes emoji saying, "Hey, look, he's signing the contract." They got a picture of him signing the contract.
That was so funny.
But for them to fire back, after the player, they put on Twitter that I won't believe it until I see it with the newspaper. I thought that was great for them to then send out that tweet with it. And I think it's tomorrow he'll be introduced formally as the head coach.
And him coming in, I feel like gives them.
Well, I think him already knowing the organization in a way, right, also helps. Okay. You would have had a guy in Josh McDaniels coming from New England to the Colts, and here you have a guy who's been with the Colts, previously. And that was one of the things that Tony Dungy said. He was in there working for me at the end of my tenure there in Indy, and that he loved the guy and all that.
Right.
So I think the Colts hit this great.
Agreed.
But the other thing kind of going on this weekend, that's a little bit bigger, and next episode I think we're going to get into more of the top 16 on the college basketball side being released, because we need a little bit more time to discuss that.
Yeah.
And to get in depth, and we, trying to keep these things right around about an hour. Don't have that time afforded to us today. But the thing I've been fascinated with all weekend and almost non-stop just watching is the Olympics. I almost seemingly can't get enough of the Olympics.
Yes.
But, we have, I see all through Twitter, everybody's talking about curling. I saw a video earlier of, people, saying the Olympics and watching curling has me doing, stuff. And they had a Roomba. Right, they had launched like it was one of the stones, and they were sweeping in front of it. And I was like, "Oh, hilarious. This is great!" And you see videos, like this that are, saying, "Oh, well, curling's got me thinking I can do it, and this and that." And then some people going, "I know, I've tried curling before. I can't get in that position." Those people have to be flexible in that. And it seems like each year curling keeps taking each Olympics, curling keeps taking us more and more by storm.
Oh yeah.
But I was watching last night snowboarding slope or snowboarding downhill or something.
I think it was downhill.
Downhill, I think is what they call it. But, they're having to combat the wind also, and they're trying to time their runs between these gusts of wind. I go, man, I can't imagine just trying to, time that out perfectly so I can hit that window just right, so that, it doesn't take me on my big jump down. But I can't get enough of it. I did see the one story from Red Guard after he won. He drops an F-bomb. But it's one of those things, and surprisingly, apparently NBC didn't actually censor it. I didn't see it live as it happened. I just saw, some replay of it. But it was one of those, it was kind of almost in a background, And so it wasn't like super loud. It wasn't like he was interviewing and he said it. He was talking to some friends. At the same time, he's 17.
Yeah.
First gold medal this Olympics for the U.S.
I mean, I'd be excited, but I don't think I'd drop the F-bomb on national TV.
And his but when he drops it, it's more out of astonishment. Like, I just actually won a gold medal in the Olympics, right? It's something he's been training for.
That's the biggest part too.
And it's something he's been training for. Probably for years.
Oh, yeah.
He's 17 years old, wins the first medal for the U.S. in this Olympics, and just pretty much can't contain his excitement is what it boils down to.
I really don't. I give them props.
And, good on him for winning the gold medal. Maybe work on mouth a little bit, but at the same time, he probably didn't really think about cameras being around. You're in such a euphoric state winning a gold medal, something that you've been training for forever.
You just don't think about it.
That you probably didn't think about it. He probably didn't really think there were, microphones around to pick him up.
No.
And something he might go on and learn from as a lot of people do when they have something like this at a younger age happen to them. But and kind of wrapping this up, right? I have been loving watching the Olympics. This is also one thing that I'm also glad that the Winter Olympics are every 4 years, and you have time in between. I think that's what makes them more likable.
Right.
We still even have a couple more years till the Summer Olympics happen. So there's enough. It's like that old adage, that distance makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yeah.
That being away from each other makes us feel better about it, and I think love them more.
Well, I mean, it's like I know this is a weird example, but just like you got your favorite ice cream, you eat it constantly, it gets tiring.
Right, you get tired of it.
And then, but eat it once, it's like, okay, that was good.
Once every couple months, or
right.
Once a month or whatever, yeah.
And then it's like, man, that tastes really good
right,
this time.
And that's the thing is that absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's all.
Exactly.
And the absence of the Olympics, I think, truly helps them, and to make us love it more. But we are not one of those things, right, where absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? You got to be in there every episode because you never know what's going to happen, what we're going to be discussing. And the easiest way to be able to keep up with every single episode out there is to subscribe to this podcast. And you can do that on iTunes. You can, go on Stitcher. I believe it's also on Podbay, on Spreaker, right? If there's something else that you normally listen to on, let us know, and we're going to we'll try to get it on there for you. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/R&D Sports Report. You can hit us up on Twitter at R&D Sports Report. Follow us on there. Like I said, to be able to stay up to date with us, right? Get every episode as it comes in, as it drops. Subscribe on iTunes. As Rylee said earlier, go ahead while you're there. Click the 5 stars. Leave us a nice review. That'll help us to be able to continue expanding and to continue to go with this podcast. And that'll do it for another episode of the R&D Sports Report.